So this is going to be a video on getting cozy with your real self. And there was just so much that was poured into from me sitting with my feelings, you know, the notes that I wrote for this, and some of this research and remembrance and really just anchoring in you know, the message that has been coming to me through my prayers and through reflection. So a lot of it is going to be me reading because I just simply don't have the language, and I want you to just hear what the message is and to decide for yourself what it is that you find valuable from it. And of course, you make your own decision from there about this topic. But I just want to at least bring it up, shed light on, and add clarity to some of what these terms can mean, how they can show up in our experiences and in dynamics, how people have moved through and beyond these situations, and what their life looks like now. What are the things they find themselves doing, thinking, processing, you know, experimenting with, etc. Yes, and I may do this as a series depending on how things unfold, but for now, let's get into some of the definitions about codependency, enmeshment, authenticity, and dependency on its own. This is really important going into these notes, because understanding how things are defined and how the things have changed their meaning through time and space and through relativity and through circumstances that arise in cultures as they shift and combine and as we grow and evolve as humans. This gives you a foundation to recognize the patterns that happen when you can give language to what's going on. Right? It's almost like with science, right? The key to science is that observation, right? And that analysis and being immersed in the process of that unfoldment and seeing what reacts, what happens, what is the result of a thing, right? So this is what we want to have as our baseline. Codependency is relationship imbalance, the enabling of another person's self-destructive behavior or dysfunctional behavior. It also stems as a survival mechanism. Authenticity is the quality of being real or genuine, original, behaving congruently with values and truthfulness, transparency, honest expression. Why are these relationships formed, and how can we recognize them? Well, it can depend on the person and their circumstances, but usually there is an imbalance or even multiple imbalances within a connection that perpetuates varying degrees of power, control over oneself. So power or control over oneself, a coupling or a group. I want to recap really quick because I understand that was just a lot of information. Repeat this question. Why are relationships formed? Why are codependent relationships formed, and how can we recognize them? These relationships express themselves differently, right? It depends on the person and their circumstances, but usually there's an imbalance or even multiple imbalances within a connection. What is an imbalance, right? Well, let's go into the difference of codependency and just dependency on its own without the co, okay? And that's important because co signifies a joining, like a mutual effort in that. There are distinct placements and statuses that enable the contribution, whether and it's not a matter of fault or blame, it is requirement, it is mechanism. Remember, we're talking about survival here, and what you choose essentially over between fear, like of death, of perishing, right, of no longer existing and extinction, over continuation, right, procreation and regeneration and legacy, ancientness, and that whole, that's a deep primordial and unconscious aspect of human senses, right, of things that we biologically work through, you know, to understand more than just our five senses, right? That there's more thought processes, that we have this expansive emotional realm, and we're connected with all life around us in harmony. This is important. That co is important. Definition of dependency: relying on something or someone else in order to function. So in order for you to cook your meal on your stove, you must turn on the electricity. You must turn on your stove, right, to get it heated up. Independency systems work by parts joining together. Each has a role, each has a contribution. So that's, as simple as something like building a swing on a tree, right? You'll get your tire, you'll get your chains, you get an extra chain to tie it around the tree or your rope or whatever mechanism you're using, and you'll need to work in harmony with the tree, right, to form that. And of course, it's always great to ask for permission first, and to make sure that it's in a way that's safe for all beings involved without causing harm to your environment, right? Dependency is designed as harmonious, right? It's when it becomes codependency that it can shift into a state of imbalance. Yeah, where I'd say the word could be imbalance in the sense, general understanding. What are the differences? Interdependency is mutual dependence. That's another word that we're going to add. So we have dependency, codependency, and interdependence. This is a state that we want to reach ultimately, right? For healthy relationships, for a healthy understanding of your sense of self and what part of the system you are, because as we operate with the world around us, we are part of that system, our ecosystem, right? That our environment is an essential aspect of our being. It is not the ultimate controller or the ultimate decision maker for your experience, but it is something that we need to be aware of, because we can shift in our environment in different ways, and we can also impact our environment. If we were not able to do that, we wouldn't build these homes and these schools and these roads and change and manipulate our hair and these things that are outside of us that keep us aware of our place on the earth. So interdependence, again, is the mutual dependence, the balance of self and other, requiring mutual involvement. In order to understand the difference between codependency and authenticity, we need to understand what's happening to a person while in these states. We need to understand what's happening as that part is operating itself. Like I said, looking for the result. What is happening? What is the data? What is present here? What's being shown to us? I'm going to also introduce another definition here, which is of enmeshment, which can be identity intertwining with someone else, or energetic courting, leaking of personal power, the sacrificing or draining of oneself. It's funny because I think a lot of people fear being alone, but isolation is often one of the greatest things to help someone who's been in an enmeshed or codependent dynamic, because that identity restores itself, right? It starts to regenerate and usually come online with that healthy isolation. And it really depends on the level of codependency and enmeshment that's occurred, and also the being's willingness to let that body turn back on, let it reset, reboot, relax, unwind, release. We cry for a reason, right? Our tears aren't just water coming out of our face, right? There are actually minerals and substances and emotions that are being felt as these tears release from our body. So whatever is releasing, as we are also animated by water, bodies are a great resource of water. So for our water to expel from us and then to be reabsorbed in a new way, that meant something was brought up that needed to, whatever the experience of the emotion, it was brought up so that we can take it in, right? So that we can realize what it is and recognize it. And it's the same thing when you're in a system. When you're in a system, when you're in a community, when you are in a body, when you have a role to animate yourself as consciousness, to be an extension of something greater, whether you recognize that as a God or a higher self or a most high or the planets and the stars or whatever. It's the understanding of the presence of that essence that is like the interest of your identity. And you see it in the world around us with ancient people, with ancient systems that still operate, right? That show that they've been functioning and giving a result that was still able to be seen after millennia, after several millennia. And that was also the extension of that individual's contribution to society, contribution to the group, contribution to the earth, the contribution to their creator. We are such giving beings by nature that we can convince ourselves that giving away ourselves will somehow make these situations better, will somehow improve the emotions or the uncertainty or the pain or the discomfort, right? We plug ourselves in to fill in this hole, this peg that isn't even our shape, that's not meant for us to plug into, right? And this is where we can get into that savior martyr complex. The intention there is because we are meant to serve a purpose. It's just being funneled into the wrong machine. It's been funneled into a machine that takes from it without reciprocity instead of regenerates and continues to regenerate. And just like things in business, when you're creating systems and sales funnels and things like that, you want to make passive income, right? You want to work from home and do all these things. You need to find a way to do that once and to keep making it happen over and over again until it's running so smoothly that you don't have to even go check on it, and you know that it's functioning because you can see the fruit of that. Same thing when we garden, when we plant these seeds to grow and to create food and resources for ourselves and for our community. You want to be able to do that again and again because you're gonna eat it. It's gonna be finished. It's gonna run out, and you're gonna be hungry tomorrow. So what are you gonna have that's gonna sustain you for tomorrow and the day after that and the day after that and the day after that? That's a level of preservation that interdependency can be a great solution to, because we realize that there are many of us who can cultivate and grow these different things. And so the person who is the master of growing corn is in great relationship with the person who is growing potatoes, right? And there is exchange there, and then we recognize, oh, and this is still something we do today. Go to your grocery store and you'll see avocados from Mexico, from Costa Rica, right? That commerce and that foreign exchange is a global network of information. And when we are in enmeshed and codependent relationships, we don't get to spread our message out. We get stuck in our roots. So we need to sprout and disperse, fertilize, and grow these things, okay? Anyway, an example of that, we gave a definition of codependency, of authenticity, of interdependency, and enmeshment. And here's the example. I'll give you enmeshment again just to recap. That's the identity intertwined with someone else, energetic courting, leaking of personal power, sacrificing oneself. Okay? We got the example of plugging yourself in to try and fill that hole. An example, parents relying on children for emotional support in the environment when children are excessively dependent on. So the parents are dependent on the children and thus keeping them from becoming independent. Because we're supposed to be essentially released from the group, basically reveal ourselves to the world, to introduce ourselves to the world, to claim our leadership and our place in that ecosystem, in that place, right? To know what those skills are. Are we the corn grower? Are we the potato grower? What is it that we're here to use and to give and to express? When you're held back from that experience and you're not able to grow, then you don't. Because if you're still being relied on in a way that keeps you from fulfilling that, and the other person is not able to do that for themselves, no one eats. There's no corn, there's no potatoes. Scarcity, there's lack, there's drought, there's famine, right? There's poverty. And so we need to show up. We need to be able to show up and to make our contributions. Why is this important? Something that came through, this was so impactful when it when it hit. I love this place that's so magical because you just see all the little flowers floating. I'm not sure if you can see these little white specks drifting by, but it's really cool because it's not snow, but it just kind of gives that heavenly kind of etheric feeling of what it's like when you witness that first snowfall, and it's beautiful. If you've been in an environment where there's snow, I know you understand what I mean. So yeah, this is the egg analogy, and I'm just going to read it as is. The egg is held together by the shell. Let's imagine the shell represents a codependent family. The dynamic depends on each member who upholds the patterns, but as soon as someone wants to separate or individuate, a crack forms. The family may want to hold things together to survive or feel whole, but in order to separate oneself and achieve independence, the egg needs to release the contents inside. A codependent person may not realize they are inside a shell until it cracks and their true essence leaks through. But they have to decide for themselves whether they want to discover what they truly are and or can become. Once the yolk and whites are released, they can be used in infinite ways. Knowing who you are is trying out different recipes and deciding whether you're an omelet or a 5-tiered cake. And I was so, wow, like as a chef, I was like, this is how I would communicate this, what it means to be freed of codependency and enmeshment, and to free yourself of that, and to take that walk and that journey of reclaiming your identity and that level of sovereignty that's been appointed to you. And I hope that was helpful, because eggs are such a primordial icon. They're such an ancient symbol in so many traditions and places in the world, and just a reminder that we carry eggs. We actually have eggs that transform into something else, right? That transform into human beings in that sense, which is that same infinite way of what are you gonna do once this egg is cracked? What are you gonna use it for? You know, what does it have the potential to become? How can we preserve this egg or make it useful, right? And how can we use this egg to give back to itself? Like, because once the seed has cracked and the tree has sprouted, the roots grow both ways. The roots grow down to anchor and solidify, and they spread out and upward. So you have to remember that there's something directing both of those experiences: the cracking of the shell and the space where the contents, where the egg itself even exists, where it actually even exists. I'm gonna go into authenticity. Authenticity is the direct opposite, if you will, of codependency and enmeshment. So how do you shift out of codependency and into enmeshment? In other words, how do you crack your egg from the inside? Let's address something first. If you're hearing these terms and concepts for the first time, I think it is very important to shift away from blame and to recognize your circumstances from the viewpoint of having conformed in order to survive, whether perceived or relating to an imminent and direct threat. And here's why. Blame can be a slippery slope that becomes a valid excuse for why you need someone else to be in control of you. If you convince yourself that you're the problem, you might also see yourself as incapable of creating solutions, when really the idea of personal power may feel completely uncomfortable, and like the only option as a result of your repositioning would be catastrophe, disaster, misery, punishment, or even annihilation. Remember, we're talking about that primordial fear of whether we'll survive, right, and last for lifetimes and leave that legacy, or if we will cease to exist and go into like this oblivion, right? That's an unconscious human fear. And here's what you can do instead. In fact, I'm going to tell you what's helped me to break through my own shell. So I'm speaking of as someone who's done this, as someone who's had to break free of codependent relationships and enmeshments and recognize my contribution in them, whether unconscious or not, and to start to decide to make decisions for myself and to make actions to stand the ground in the identity that I'm forming and the values that I have and the beliefs, no matter what,
no matter what things, what threats are thrown at me, or no matter what circumstances may arise or be the consequences, no matter how I have to shift, no matter how I may have had to shift away from the group so I can start that trek and to reclaim that autonomy, really. And this is what channeled through. I chose myself over everyone else. I made the decision to stand up for myself and declare my own worth. This was merely the first step, and I was prepared, more so ready to accept whatever came next, because I was too exhausted of people trying to make me into a puppet. Or rather, I learned, truthfully, also of allowing myself to believe that other people were more capable of being me than I was. For me, this meant embracing the full spectrum of my emotions to the best of my ability and with support. At the time, that was reflected in my relationships, my intimate relationships. It felt as though I was cutting off oxygen at first, and then it all hit me. Like it feels like you're cutting off a part of you, right? But you realize it actually wasn't you, and it's not something that you actually need to survive. And it felt as though I was cutting off my oxygen at first. The anger, betrayal, amusement, and audacity of it all. And don't get me wrong, I was happy to be doing my own thing, but I was shocked to learn that my desire for freedom resulted in being essentially the cracking of the shell. Being disowned or cut off or threatened or turned away or villainized or blamed or mistreated, even though those same people were telling me it was all an act of love. Now that was pretty hard. What did I do? Cry, vent, set things aside. For me, this meant relocating to a different place, which was the Yucatan. It meant leaving the shell only to recognize my own patterns and how my idea or my lack of trust in myself kept me naive of other people's intentions and my own. There was me ignoring. There was me turning a blind eye to things because I did it to survive. Like there was this helplessness, right, that I had to recognize was this thing that was keeping me from growing and from actually stepping into my own power. And so that's the other aspect of the tree. There's the part that pushes up and the part that's down. Well, if you're just looking at the root, you don't realize that your responsibility as the part of you that cracked out of the shell is to sprout up, and how that serves the dynamic. So so being you actually serves for the greater good, greater humanity, being you and being well and being healthy. And so for me, that meant I had no phone, no bank, no job. That's how I went all in that way. So I don't necessarily say that this is the way or the thing that I recommend necessarily for anyone, but if you really want to know the core of who you are, sometimes it means literal isolation. Like that's what it required for me. But you can do this in whatever doses feel good to you, what you feel ready for, because again, it's your responsibility. It's you who will have to move away from the codependency into interdependence, if that's what you wish, and just full independency, right? That level of liberation. So no job, no phone, no bank, because I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. I knew that was the core and the essence of me, that I would not be separated from my children, that I would be there in those moments of their growth, that I would have someone trustworthy as my partner, as my mate, who raises up our community with me, who raises up our tribe with me, that shares in similar values, and who I respect and who respects me. And that we give each other that space to dedicate ourselves to our crafts, to the things that are meaningful to us, without getting in the way of the other, without extracting from them, and being able to recognize and learn where those things are embedded in culture. To be honest, when we find ourselves about to enable or to enact a pattern, and to apologize, to correct the boundary that we've crossed, or to recommunicate new boundaries, to set new boundaries, to check in and to see what's working, what's not, right? This reflection is essential. You don't know your crops are growing if you don't go and actually tend to them and water them, right? You got to see how they're improving. We have to collect the data too. We don't just make these creations and then abandon them there, right? We need to immerse into the experience and grow along with them. because what we create grows with us. Okay, that's part of us here too. I learned how to navigate life where the language was also not my native tongue, even though I could already speak some French and I was learning Spanish. And as years went by, I realized I still had a lot more work to do, but really it was learning how to play again, learning what my interests are, what do I enjoy doing, what is it that I'm really good at, what do I enjoy when no one else is around, does it change in front of company? And if so, that means it must be really important to me, and I think that I have to keep it from others, that others will want to take it, which is natural. Like, having boundaries is what keeps you safe and what helps you to navigate through life. But when I know that my boundaries are set and I'm able to do things, no matter how people are going to react or respond to me or belittle or talk about these things, that I don't let it shake my foundation. I continue forward knowing that the boundary is set and that it, I will not allow it to be crossed. Like, having built boundaries as the parameters in place that serve my needs. Work to do, I ask myself those questions, and it's taken a lot of grace towards myself, a lot of trial and error, a lot of risks and faith and trust, and knowing that everything can work out for my good and for the greater good of others around me, that there is no lack, that there is no scarcity, that there's enough for all of us. What it feels like to live in that reality, what it feels like to live with that truth and that knowing that the provision is there. And then it's just simple. It's just literally showing up, seeing what works. If it doesn't work, you do it again and find a way to make it work. And that's it, Something I didn't know. It was something I didn't know I really left. Something I didn't really know until I had left. And what supported me was the divine. It was high school BFFs and their parents who heard my story and gave me places to stay or drove me to and from airports. It was the angels who would see me crying while I was out walking and offering friendship and wisdom. It was my romantic partners who would encourage my self-esteem and push me over the edge when I was too afraid to jump. I don't know if I really got to thank these people the way they deserve. Thank you. I am truly immensely grateful for everything I've learned. Yes, absolutely. The other aspect of it is knowing and having actual healthy relationships in your lives and seeing how those dynamics play out. How does that make you feel? How does it feel when you're around those people who make you feel good, who support you, who help you to thrive, who see what you contribute and they honor you for that, and they encourage you to create more, and they give to you as well. And they share their interests with you and the things that they're good at, and they put you on to new things, and just how nourishing that is, how essential it is, and recognizing how so many people have just been deprived of that basic right, that basic understanding. And that's what we're here to restore through doing this work. I'm not telling you to go book a plane ticket and leave your troubles behind, firstly because they will follow you wherever you go, but also because that may not be what you need. I could regurgitate things that psychologists say and send you down a self-help path, but I know what that leads to. This journey is a personal one. For me, it has been an act of trust, courage, faith, and willingness to know that there is more to life. And I just wanted to let you know that there can be and is. How do you become authentic? I cannot tell you what you need. Plus, answering that could rob you of the very point of this video. I will say that it's not about becoming, but discovering who you have been and are in each moment, then deciding who you want to be and fully devoting yourself to that no matter what. And this may be a question you have. Like, what if you do all that and you still struggle, and stuff still comes up? So do you still struggle? Absolutely, but I don't let it stop me. I've grown exponentially in 5 years because I dared to bet on myself. I made a lot of impulsive and irrational and even questionable mistakes along the way, but I also realized the only punishment came from my own mentality, right? It was the own judging of myself of thinking oh, this is causing problems, or you're being problematic, or you're impulsive, or maybe these people are right, or maybe I should listen to them, maybe they do know best, and pushing through that and not letting that stop me. Not letting those thoughts that I grew up with, be the dictators of me actually going out and seeing what's possible and what's working and sticking to that without trying to even lean on others for that help. Seeing what I'm capable of and what I'm learning of, and what things I make as excuses, what things I've been addicted to or used to or validated me that came externally, right? And taking those things away, finding healthy ways to validate myself, to have healthy relationships where there's mutual exchange of recognizing other people's honor, their inherent value, and their existence being seen. That ultimately, literally being my perspective, my thoughts, my beliefs, and seeing what they are and saying like, oh, whoa, I've been thinking this, like this, I've allowed this belief to keep me from something that I thought was possible, or something that was actually possible for me. I used that to keep me from something that was actually possible for me. Now that I've had some time away and I've seen someone who's exemplifying that, someone who has it, I see that it is possible. I'm like, it can be possible for me too. What did that person go through to get to that space? What is it that I need to do to reach that space? And then doing that. And like, there's actually no doubt, there's no fear, there's nothing that's holding you back, there's no excuse, there's rushed even, because it's being done at the pace where the results are showing you whether it's working or not. And so you keep doing it until you get the result that you want. Perseverance too, and dedication and devotion to that, and to oneself, and to what the self is capable of creating for the others. Like, what were you designed for? What were you birthed to do? You know, what is that gift? What are the skills that you came with? What is the mission that you came with to do? I'm still planting seeds. I'm seeing what's working. I'm seeing what's not. I'm learning what I like and what I don't like. I'm making that clear to others. I'm expressing myself honestly. And I realize how someone else responds to that is none of my business. And how I can sit and decide with myself whether or not I'm going to let that affect me, or to keep me from pursuing what I know it is that I need for myself, which is a no, which is me keep holding that boundary, and whatever emotions come up with that, whether that's fear of rejection, fear of persecution, or the person's reaction or whatever, I let those feelings, be felt. I let them flow through. I acknowledge that I'm safe. I acknowledge who my body is, and that that's not the whole truth of who I am, and that other people's emotions are theirs to deal with, and that it's that understanding of who you are, and just that maturity that comes from also knowing what those other people are at, and what it takes to actually reach this point of work, and how you cannot save someone from doing that. Like, that there has to be willing participation. I've been on a journey to love myself, and I mean that truly, to realize that I'm worthy, and to realize that things I was embarrassed to admit, and honor my choices in these moments. I've learned how to process emotions like grief, sadness, and turmoil, and to sit in the comforting silence that follows, to be there for the days and the months and the years that followed, to crack a smile because love showed me with a new face. Love showed up with a new face and adores the parts of me that are learning how to balance my first steps in this identity I have claimed and birthed. I can decide who can stay or go. I surround myself with those who value themselves and also me. I acknowledge the difference between a victim and a victim mentality. I have chosen to serve the victims that have a mentality, right? They're just not like making excuses and they're, clinging to whatever. But I mean, where things have been wrongly done when they're in the dependent state rather than the codependent state, right? So we're talking like children, the elderly, the vulnerable, those who are diseased or unwell, or who are in even like states of unconsciousness, or who depend on others for their survival because they're literally incapable of it otherwise. And who you are is all that you are, and it's that simple. You may want to know an answer to this question before we go. Will you never hear from your family again? Could be a huge one. Like this concept and this idea that you are one day gonna grow older as a child, and your dad and your mom are gonna be there at your wedding, and you get married, and your sister is like your best friend, and you like get to grow old together, and this like realizing that in a lot of these dynamics, and when each being needs to free themselves essentially from that system, will require time and make separation and isolation. And if that's not the idea for you of sitting with those emotions too, and just acknowledging the truth of what is in that moment, so you can really make the best decision for yourself. And allow for there to be true restoration and true harmony should that unfold between you, and should you decide to still remain in relationship with your family members, but with clearer boundaries, a better sense of self, with that time and isolation away, with that work that you do, restore that sense of identity and personal power, and move through that. But for me, the answer was clear. How about you? I'm a big supporter of somatic-based practices. A huge part of my healing required movement, like literally just leave. Be in nature, to walk, to stretch, to exercise, to dance, tapping, love, being in a relationship, and great relationship and healthy relationship. The actual art of receiving, learning how to receive love, like even in the sense of love making, sexual boundaries as well, intimate boundaries with people who I partner with in my life, right? Because that's the relationship that I had as my family, with my family of origin, and my sense of identity also is the aspect that manifests itself through other relationships too. So the people I meet, the strangers I work with on the first day, we don't really know each other, and how we end up, selecting who's going to be, part of our like tribe, like who's going to be part of our community, or if we're going to continue to isolate and just spend time to ourselves because the company around us, right? Like these skills help you to navigate through the world. So it's so important for us to know the importance of that authenticity, of knowing who you are and knowing how to navigate as you. Also in therapy for a little bit as a child, through middle school, through some college, through high school. No, not really high school, but middle school more so, and college. And as an adult, I sought these things out myself, or there were some really outstanding adults who were around me who saw that I needed support and I needed to be heard and to be seen. So shout out to them. And although talk therapy was a saving grace for me at many points in my life, I didn't want it to become a crutch of external validation, because for me, as someone who's been codependent, you don't want someone to tell you what you should think, or to just tell you, oh, you're right and that was wrong, that shouldn't have happened, like that. It can be helpful, but you don't want that to be something that you become codependent on too, where every single thing that happens in your life you need to talk to somebody about it. Like being able to sit with yourself and to enjoy your company and to navigate through things, and then you just simply choose when you want to bring information to someone or when you want to share something with someone, rather than feeling obligated because like you're paying them, or someone says that you need to get better, or any kind of thing like that. Oh, it's so beautiful. Some dogs walking by. That was really helpful for me. I didn't want it to be a crutch, so I also suggest start with the body-based practices so you can build up that sense of autonomy first. And if you feel like therapy could still be a good option for you, and that you're not gonna be, it's a choice that you're making because you feel it would help, rather than something that you need in order to get better. You know what I mean? Like you're not like, once I do this thing then I'll be well, because some people end up in those situations for many, many years and they're still talking about the same thing. So there's still work that needs to be done, right? But being able to acknowledge what it is and to kind of have feedback. And if you don't have friends, if you don't get out and meet new people, having a therapist, I think, can be a really great way to start to develop relationships that are supposed to be centered around intimacy. But again, that's a risk, because people, again, have their own experiences with life and were raised in certain ways, and that can trickle in again to their other relationships, such as work, which includes therapists and these people who are offering healing, who I've seen so many people do, and they themselves are not like balanced or well, or setting up those boundaries, or being consistent and keeping them, and like they may need more time to really develop before they can offer you something that will actually help you to be well, and that doesn't also contain those same streaks of dependency. So we really want you to be able to be at your best and in the capacity that feels best for you. I suggest body-based practices and surrounding yourself with supportive people who you trust. And I mean, like, when I say trust, I mean, who could you trust your life with? It needs to be that level of trust. Who is on speed dial when an emergency happens, like where your existence is treasured and valued, and they'll support you through that period of unconsciousness, through that period of dependence. These are the people who would come and perform CPR, the people who will come when they see you drowning and you don't know how to swim, or you're caught on a net when you really need them and they show up. Okay, that's dependency. And I saw a really great video recently of this 17-year-old boy. I believe his last name was Johnson, if not Joshua, but he jumped into a lake to save an older woman who was drowning, and the current was so strong and she couldn't swim up against it, and she was like getting exhausted from that, and he swam her across that river to safety. And the next day, some firemen also helped to pull him out, like 2 men, I think. I don't know if they were actually firemen, but 2 men came to help pull him out. And the next day he was given a scholarship to become a firefighter because of his contribution, because of what he did. And he's 17 years old. And wow, the land around me, you see the white, they just started blowing again, like super hard. So yeah, celebration, like that was an amazing thing to witness, and such a testament to independence. And I'm so proud to know that there is youth out here who are doing incredible things, to see them standing up for things that serve the greater good of all people, and are learning how to coexist with others around them, no matter what their differences are, and to make things work here, and to express joy. And it's so incredible and so powerful. And so thank y'all for watching this video. May we all strive to be like that 17-year-old boy, and to do that as we take on our endeavors in life, as we create and we experience and we travel and we build and we share and we build, our businesses and our neighborhoods, and we do things that help us during these times where that grief does come up, and we do need this healthy independence and relationship. But we do need individuals to decide who they are and how they're going to show up, and what they're going to do about the things they see in their world and what they see in their inner world. And I love y'all. I thank you for being here, and hope you have an amazing day, night, lunch, nap, or whatever is happening in your spirit. And until the next video, don't forget to subscribe. It really helps me to grow the channel. If you liked this, leave a comment, add to the discussion, let us know what things you reflected on, if this is a journey you've been on. If this video was helpful at all, if there's something more that you want to see on this channel that we discuss and that we go into deeper and examine, and if there are other resources that I can provide that would help you. So thank you very much. And you can follow me at TheAnointedHand on Instagram. Peace.